Hi everyone, my name is Maria Rosa Muñoz. I'm a senior researcher at the Wuppertal Institute for Climate, Environment and Energy, which is a German institute conducting research on sustainability since 1991. And specifically, I work at the Urban Living Lab Center, which is a UN Habitat collaborating center implemented by the Wuppertal Institute, the Technical University of Berlin, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the MIT. For this course, I will present the EcoZones methodology with a focus on roads safety. So let's start by introducing the EcoZones project. EcoZones is a project funded by the International Climate Initiative, an initiative of the German government, and was implemented by the Wuppertal Institute, specifically the Urban Living Lab Center I just mentioned, and it was in collaboration with UII Mexico. The goal of the project was to develop a methodological framework and digital toolbox to conduct neighborhood assessments with the community and, based on the results, implement context-based sustainable urban solutions to address the most pressing issues identified. The project was piloted in two medium-sized Mexican cities, León and Hermosillo. But what exactly are EcoZones? We've defined EcoZones as sustainable, resilient, and livable neighborhoods that promote inclusion, collaboration, and well-being for all their inhabitants while being prepared for the impacts of climate change. This is a concept based on the Urban Living Lab approach, which includes 5 pillars. Those are assessment and improvement, participatory and multi-stakeholder approach, adaptation to the local context, which is key, testing and learning, and leadership and appropriation of the community, which is also very important. But on top of those 5, for the EcoZones approach, we've added 2 additional ones. The first one is the neighborhood scale, as we've identified it as the perfect geographical scale for an active community participation. And the second one is intersectoral articulation. In contrast to other living labs that might have a thematic focus, sector, or want to test a specific technology, the EcoZones approach is multi-sectorial. That means that it targets all the sectors where needs were identified. The EcoZones Toolbox development started by the definition of the assessment framework, which is the wheel that you can see on your screen. And after a very thorough literature review, we identified 4 dimensions, 21 categories, and 44 subcategories needed to assess the sustainability, resilience, livability, and inclusion of a neighborhood. I will not go into the details of the categories and subcategories here, but the dimensions will already give you a good idea of what's being measured. So the first one is urban environment, where we are talking about compact neighborhoods, walkable and cyclable with mixed uses, green areas, and public spaces where people meet and feel safe. The second one is environmental quality, where we are talking about pollution-free neighborhoods with low climate change impact and access to basic services. The third one is socioeconomic well-being, where we're talking about inclusive neighborhoods with equal access to employment, education, and healthcare, and where community participation is encouraged. And finally, we have disaster risk, where we are aiming for prepared neighborhoods in case of natural phenomena and disasters with low probability of damage and a high response capacity. But you might be wondering, what does this have to do with road safety, right? Well, actually a lot. At least in the urban environment dimension, there are several categories and subcategories that touch upon road safety. In fact, 4 out of 8 categories are somehow related to road safety. The most obvious one is, of course, safety, number 8, where we address safety perception as road users and in the face of crime and harassment. The latter is, of course, super important if you would like to promote walking on the street, mostly for women that might feel unsafe walking by themselves at night, for example, right? But there are three additional categories that are related to general urban planning and design that, when implemented adequately, would necessarily improve the safety of the most vulnerable road users, such as pedestrians and cyclists. The first one is urban form. So, compact, mixed use, and dense city developments where people predominantly walk and cycle, we're talking about the 15-minute city concept, for example, are safer by design for vulnerable road users than urban sprawl that favors road development and the use of cars, right? This, of course, has to be complemented by quality infrastructure for walking and cycling, and as a result, have a better balance between the space used for cars and the space used for walking and cycling. This space has to be more balanced, and at the moment, in many cities, in most cities, it's pretty much inclined towards car users. So now that I already presented the framework, the assessment framework, let me introduce you to the toolbox that was built upon, the EcoZones toolbox. I'm talking about a set of collaborative digital tools to empower and inspire communities to initiate sustainable actions at the local level. The EcoZones digital toolbox, which was developed with the support of Codeando Mexico, has two components. The first one is the mobile app EcoZones, available for Android and iOS, by which a neighborhood survey and a collaborative mapping could be conducted offline, which is very important, to collect geolocalized data on the most pressing issues of a neighborhood in the four dimensions mentioned before: dimensions, categories, subcategories, and so on. And the second component is the EcoZones website, in which the results collected via app can be visualized and downloaded. That would be either as a report or as a database for a more in-depth analysis. The website also includes a catalog of sustainable urban solutions where users can explore how to address the issues identified. Finally, in the download section, users will find resources such as the EcoZones guidelines or a template of the monitoring survey. Another question is, of course, how are these tools supposed to be used, right? Well, for that, we put together a methodology in line with the Urban Living Lab approach. So we start by using the EcoZones app, the survey, and the mapping, together with the neighborhood community, to generate a neighborhood assessment. The tools already identify sustainable urban solutions that could address the most pressing issues identified in the assessment. This is something that can be downloaded in the form of a report or a database from the EcoZones website. With those results, the idea is to go back to the community to prioritize the sustainable urban solutions based on their needs and available resources. Here, it's important to mention that these solutions are just a reference to be discussed with the communities. They often have very good ideas on how to tackle the issues they experience on a daily basis, so it's very important to listen to them. And that's when the co-design process begins. We work together with the community in the design of the solutions so that they directly cater to their needs. The fifth step is the implementation, where we rely on a lot of the support of the community, be that either volunteers from the neighborhood or donations from public and private entities that enable the implementation of low-cost and high-impact interventions. The last step, the last and final step, is to close the loop with the monitoring. It is key to understand the impact of the intervention in the community for replication and scale-up. And now, going back to road safety, how can the tools presented be used to improve road safety? One of the main examples is the collaborative mapping embedded in the mobile app, by which public space audits, including crossings, sidewalks, and bike lanes, can be conducted. Using the EcoZones toolbox in the pilots conducted in Mexico, we were able to identify road safety related issues such as blocked sidewalks, deficient crossings, unsafe spaces, bike lanes needed, lighting needs, and more. Here you can see some of the pictures of the mapping that we conducted in Hermosillo and León. And once the assessment was ready, we also prioritized, co-designed, and implemented sustainable urban solutions in the Mexican pilots that included street improvements, pavements, pedestrian crossings, better lighting, and more. So here you can see some of the examples of the work that was conducted, not exclusively on road safety measures, but here you can see one of the alleys that was improved for a better accessibility. So if we cut your attention with this and you think the EcoSense toolbox can be useful for your work, be that for the implementation of neighborhood interventions or to teach university students how to collect urban data and design projects accordingly, don't miss the next modules of these units, where we will present how to use the tools step by step and the results of the implementation in the pilots in Mexico by the local entities that implemented them. Also, feel free to download the app and enter the website to download all the available resources that you can see here on the screen. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in the next modules and units.